In this video, I am going to discuss roles and responsibilities of clinical trial personnel as per ICH GCP guidelines. Clinical trial personnel includes sponsor, clinical trial coordinator, investigator, clinical monitor, and finally comes auditor. In this video, I'm only focused with the roles and responsibilities of sponsor. In coming videos, I'll be doing the roles and responsibilities of other clinical trial personnel. Coming to sponsor. In general terms, what do you mean by sponsor? Sponsor is a person who finances. In the same way, in clinical trial also, sponsor is an individual or institution who takes up the responsibilities of initiation, management, and financing of the clinical trial. In general terms, sponsor is concerned with only financing part. In clinical trials, sponsor is responsible for initiation, management, and also financing of the clinical trials. There are a number of roles and responsibilities of sponsor in clinical trial. It includes selection of investigator and institution, allocation of responsibilities to them, contract research organization management. We'll discuss about each role and responsibilities of sponsor in detail in coming slides. The main responsibility of sponsor is selection of investigator and institution. The sponsor should first select investigator and institution. The investigator should be sufficiently qualified by experience and training. He should have prior experience in conducting clinical trials, as we are dealing with humans in clinical trial. So the hospital or institution in which clinical trial is being conducted should have adequate resources to properly conduct the trial. Before entering into an agreement with the investigator, the sponsor should provide protocol and investigator's brochure to the institution or investigator to review the documents properly in the given time. So contracts and agreements. The sponsor should obtain the investigator or institution agreement stating the four essential points. That is, trial is conducted in compliance with GCP and regulatory requirements with the protocol agreed by the sponsor and after getting the approval of IRB or IEC, to comply with the procedures of data recording and reporting, to permit monitoring, auditing and inspection, to retain the trial related documents until the sponsor informs. By stating all these important points in an agreement, the sponsor and investigator should sign the protocol to confirm the agreement. Contract Research Organization (CR). A sponsor may transfer all the sponsor's trial-related duties and functions to a CRO, but ultimate responsibility for quality and integrity of the trial data always resides with the sponsor. In clinical trials, sponsor is usually a pharmaceutical company. Some of the well-known contract research organizations are like Parexel, PPD, Icon, Covance, etc. So pharmaceutical organization or pharmaceutical company transfers its trial-related duties to a contract research organization on behalf of sponsor. All the roles and responsibilities are fulfilled by the contract research organization. So their main purpose is to ensure the quality assurance and quality control. Any trial related duty or function that is transferred to a CRO should be documented in writing. In clinical research or clinical trials, everything should be documented. Allocation of responsibilities. Prior to initiating a trial, the sponsor should clearly define and establish and allocate all trial-related duties and functions to trial-related personnel accordingly. What are the roles and responsibilities of an investigator, sub-investigator and CRC? Sponsor should clearly define the roles and responsibilities and make them do accordingly. Clinical trial management, data collection, handling and record keeping. All this comes under the responsibilities of a sponsor. Sponsor should assess the progress of the trial. Sponsor should look after the trial, whether to continue the trial or to modify the trial, whether to stop the trial. All these things a sponsor come to know while doing the trial management, while data collecting. So sponsors should maintain a standard operating procedure and should do adequate audit trials, adequate backup data sponsors should keep. Sponsors should maintain all essential documents and data confidentiality according to the guidelines and regulatory requirements. So whenever the regulatory authority requires, the sponsor should provide the required documentation for review, acceptance and permissions. Compensation to subjects and investigators. The sponsor should provide the insurance or legal financial coverage to the investigator or institution against the claims arising from the trial. From the trial, what are the claims that are institution arising? The sponsor should provide the insurance or legal coverage. The sponsor's policies and procedures should clearly state that cost of treatment a trial subject gets in case of a trial related injury, that should be also in accordance with the applicable regulatory requirements. So in the manner and method of compensation should also comply with the regulatory requirements if the trial subject receives the compensation. Confirmation of review by IRB or IAC. Sponsors should obtain the name and address of the institutional IRB or IAC and a statement that IRB or IAC is organized and operated according to the GCP and applicable laws and regulations. On request of the IRB or IAC, the sponsor should submit the current copy of protocol informed consent form, any information that to be provided to subjects, subject recruiting procedures, documents related to payments and compensation available to subject. All these documents need to be provided to IRB or IEC on request. After reviewing all documents, the IRB or IEC gives the favorable opinion or approval. If the IRB or IEC suggests any modifications or changes, such changes should be done and documented before proceeding to the trial. Information on investigational products. When planning trial, the sponsor should ensure sufficient safety and efficacy data available from the non-clinical studies and clinical trials to support the human exposure by route, dosage, duration, and in trial population to be studied. Whenever the sponsor gets the new information, he should update the investigator's brochure and it should be approved by the ethics committee before implementing the updated version of investigator's brochure, as it is concerned with the humans. So ethical committee approval is must. Without ethics committee approval, updated version of IB cannot be accepted. Sponsor should ensure that the investigational product is manufactured, packed, labeled, coded in accordance with the applicable regulatory requirements. The investigational product should be stored according to the given storage instructions. So the investigation product should be packed to prevent contamination and acceptable deterioration during transport and storage. In blinded trials, the coding system for the investigational product should include a mechanism that permits a rapid identification of product in case of medical emergency. Supplying and handling investigational product. The sponsor is responsible for supplying investigational product to the institution. The sponsor should not supply investigational product until sponsor obtains all required documentation. Sponsors should ensure written procedures include instructions to the investigators on how to handle and store the investigational products for the trial and documentation. The procedure should clearly state the safe receipt, handling, storage, dispensing, retrieval of unused products and return of unused investigational products to the sponsor. All these things should be clearly documented, as investigational product is a very crucial thing in clinical trials. The investigational product supply and handling is very important. The sponsor should ensure that timely delivery of the investigational product, and he should maintain the document, shipment, receipt and disposition, return and destruction of the investigational products, maintain the system for retrieving the investigational products and documenting a retrieval, maintain a system for disposition of unused investigational products, etc. The sponsor should take steps to ensure investigational products are stable over a period of time, and it should sponsor should maintain adequate quantity of investigational products to reconfirm specification until it is necessary. To the extent stability permits, samples should be retained either for analysis of the trial data are complete or as required by the applicable regulatory requirements. The sample should be retained until a specified time. Retention is important. record access. The sponsor should ensure that it is specified in the protocol or other agreement that the institution will give direct access to the source data for trial-related monitoring, audits, IRB review, and regulatory inspection. So before getting into the agreement, sponsors should clearly get the statement that the institution allows the direct access to the source data of the subjects related for the trial monitoring, audits, review, and regulatory inspection. The sponsor should verify the subject has consented in writing to direct access his medical records for trial related monitoring, auditing, and regulatory inspection. Safety information. The sponsor is responsible for ongoing safety evaluation of the investigation products. Any findings that could adversely affect the safety of the subjects or impact the conduct of trial, all things should be promptly notified to the investigators, regulatory authorities, and ethics committee. This is the responsibility of sponsor to notify to the investigators, institutional ethics committee, and regulatory authorities of any findings that could affect the subject safety or impact the conduction of trial. Adverse drug reaction reporting. The sponsor should report all concerned investigators, institution, ethics committees, and to regulatory authorities of all adverse drug reactions that are both serious and unexpected. Such reports should comply with the regulatory requirements and with the ICH guidelines for clinical safety data management. The sponsor should submit the regulatory authorities of all safety updates and periodic reports as required by the regulatory requirements. All adverse drug reactions, whether it is serious or unexpected, that should be reported by sponsor to the investigators, IRBs, and regulatory authorities. And that report and the reporting also should comply with the regulatory requirements. Coming to monitoring and auditing. In coming videos, I'll discuss about monitoring and auditing in a detailed way. As of now, I'll say a main thing about monitoring and auditing. What do you mean by monitoring? Sponsor appoints a qualified person as a monitor who performs monitoring and verifies the trial related data and sees whether the data is collected in accordance with the protocol and applicable regulatory requirements. In the same way, the auditing is also done. Auditors also do the same thing and they'll document all observations they have noticed from the trial related documentation and they'll report. So sponsors should provide audit certificate to the regulatory bodies so they'll conduct auditing. Coming to premature termination or suspension of trial. If a trial is prematurely terminated or suspended, the sponsor should inform the investigator and regulatory authorities of the termination or suspension of the trial and the reason should be mentioned. And the IRB or IEC should also be informed about the termination of the trial either by the sponsor or by investigator. Clinical trial and study reports. Whether the trial is completed or prematurely terminated, whether it is completely finished or whether it is stopped, the sponsor should ensure that the trial related reports are prepared and provided to the regulatory authorities. Multi-central trials. For multi-central trials, all investigators should conduct the conduct the trial in strict compliance with the protocol agreed by the sponsor and regulatory requirements. The CRFs are designed to capture the required data at all multi-center trial sites. If any investigator wants to collect additional data, supplement CRF should be also provided to the investigators. All investigators are given instructions on following the protocols and compiling with a uniform set of standards for assessment of clinical and laboratory findings and on completing the CRFs. On completion of CRFs and how to complete the CRFs, all the investigators are given the same instruction. All investigators should compile with the instruction given by the sponsor in completing the CRFs and conducting the trial. Thank you for your time. We'll meet in next video.